was down in the woods and a fly landed on my shoulder. It buzzed past me ear, it did. And I looked at it and it stood on my shoulder and I pointed its head that way and that way. And I said, "What?" to the fly. And I looked then and there was tinfoil that I left there the night before. The fly was telling me to pick up all my rubbish. Isn't that mad? But it reminds me of China and the plague that just popped out of Mongolia recently. See, Mongolia has always been free of China. There's another. China has always stayed behind its wall, and there was never any problems, really. You just had like a couple of local scuffles. But now China has bred millions and millions and millions and millions of people. Now it says in the Bible, Chinese people probably wouldn't know this, they don't read the Bible. There's a verse in the Bible and it says Babylon. Babylon is usually something to do with the walls and stuff like that. You have bred more than the people around you. God doesn't like that, especially if you're not of the faith. And then I was looking, I watched this thing called China Uncensored, and they're breeding loads of flies with no bollocks. So they're making all these mosquitoes and they're releasing them to mate with the females. They're doing the same over here. They're putting loads of shit in the field and they're turning all the men into faggots. It's the same thing with flies, but they're trying to get rid of a species of mosquitoes. Mother Nature is conscious of this, she knows it. So all of a sudden recently, they're going to release loads of mosquitoes with no bollocks. But they still have a sucker to spread blood. So them little flies, the millions of extra little mosquitoes, they'll fly over into Mongolia on the wind. They'll suck loads of bubonic plague blood. Or else they'll bite the rats will have the fleas, the rats will multiply when the people start dying. China won't be able to handle a pandemic because there's 1 billion people in China. And the bubonic plague then will spread over here. Because they keep fucking around with everything, you know. So yeah, they bred loads of mosquitoes with no bollocks. They can grow. They have no sperm, mosquito sperm or something. They can't reproduce, so they're breeding millions of them, and they're letting them go. And they're gonna start biting. They're gonna start mating and not have any babies. Mosquitoes are there for a reason. You might not like them, but they're there for a reason. You know, the earth and the Most High has a way of dealing with pesky humans when they get too big for their britches. He just eradicates whole countries, whole nations, whole cities, whole place, just wallop. He eradicated the whole earth before because of all of this madness. It was called the Great Flood. This time he's going to do it by fire. But some people are going to be protected. It clearly states that in the Bible. The Lord's inheritance, the faithful, are going to be protected. You'll have to wait and see. But anyway, that's what's happening. So, the more you used to fight the kings, the more the king of the kings. You see, he's like the king's daddy. He's daddy king. He's the Most High king. He has all these little fellas underneath the kings. They have horns on their heads, they're growing admins. And if you don't do what they're fucking taught, if you don't do what them kings tell you, and start treating them with proper respect, you're gonna start getting scabs and all sorts of shit. See, I live down in the woods where my tent is. And down in them woods there used to be a lot of these women down there doing all this hocus pocus and all. And all the trees started to die. They were doing all these ceremonies with crystals and all shit and saying they were doing healing. But ever since they started doing the healing, all the trees started to die. And there's about 4 or 5 people seeing this big black fucking yoke running around in the woods. A big black spirit. So there's none of them women down in the woods anymore because me and another fella, they don't like us. we stay down in the woods. They don't come near us. They said they can't handle our energy. But most of these women have aborted babies and shit. They don't have any kids. They're no good for nothing. They have smelly fannies. They don't wash themselves. They go around fucking every Tom, Dick and Harry, and they won't produce any kids. And when they do get a baby, they go over to England and get it killed, by all accounts. So we can't handle their baby murdering energy, you know. So the trees are starting to die. So in the Bible it says the Lord will release the devourer from the pit, or else he will rebuke the devourer from the pit for your sakes. But there's loads of stuff in the darkness of the abyss, like diseases and stuff like that. Like if you look at, say, a Hindu god, this evil goddess creature thing, the statue, the idol of the Hindu goddess Kali, and then you look at a retrovirus under the microscope, and you try and superimpose the retrovirus onto Kali, the genetic, it fits perfect. It fits absolutely perfect. They must have been able to have a proper look back in the day, so they made an idol of the disease. Because you know, some of these people actually worship disease and stuff. They love all that, because they're not into the good, they're into the bad. So you'll never be able to reason with them and ask them to stop doing what they're doing, because they're tares. And tares are only interested in doing that. And they'll promise you the sun, the moon, like politicians. They'll promise you the sun, the moon, the earth and the stars. And they'll give you fuck all but misery and sorrow. Now I went up to the hill of Tara and built a roundhouse and gave interviews on the radio years ago and warned you all about this. But you all just gave me the finger and says, fuck you. You know, fuck you. Who the fuck do you think you are coming over here from England with all your airs and graces? We don't want to know you English loving scumbag. Something like that. You know yourselves. Begrudging hating paddy shit. But anyway, now it's all coming to fruition. I told them all the other day in the van, when I was up there, I was screaming at them about it. I was going, they're fucking disease. He said, oh, about when all them fucking babies have scabs all over them. Who's going to comfort all the mothers whose children are dying? And they were going, right, calm down, shut your mouth. 2 days later, bubonic plague in Mongolia. That's the truth. You just don't want to hear it. So it's like this. You try to book up your ideas. That's the Lord's instructions. It's the same instructions to me as it is to you. You got to book up your ideas and repent, or else the whole family, the whole country, the whole nation could be wiped out. This is the story in the Bible. This is what the Bible says happens to all the paddies, because you're stubborn. The Lord says, 1/3 of you will. Let them who are for the sword be for the sword. Let them who are for scatter to be scattered. And let them who are for death be for death. So 1/3 of the people will only survive on this island if you continue. See, Jesus says there is nothing new under the sun. What has been before will be again. So Jesus sent Ezekiel the rod of iron. He says, this is the rod of iron. The Most High God said, this is the rod of iron whom my son uses to subdue nations. So Jesus says to Ezekiel, he says, go to the people. They are a stubborn people. It was probably St. Patrick. Ezekiel lived for a few thousand years. He says, go to the people and tell them whether they will listen or whether they won't listen. They didn't listen. Then he came back a few hundred years later, Strongbow, Brian Boru, and fucking gave it to them. Killed all the ancient men and all the high kings, all of that. Whacked the whole lot of them and built churches. Churches are a curse. He's not getting the gist. So when you're reading verses in the Bible about prophets, prophets lived a very long time. So you're not just reading a big message that happened in a week. It could happen over a period of 3 or 4 or 5 or even 1,000 years or more. You're reading the life of a man that lived for thousands of years in following out the Lord. A very dutiful, loyal, angelic servant who, a proper loyalist, loyal to the king and the kings. You know.